better technology, better ethics, better ways of being and knowing. The floodwaters would push the fish into the weir and then they would get stuck. So when the water receded, it was like fishing with dynamite. Fishing weirs are just one of the many ways Indigenous Americans impacted their environment years before Europeans ever set foot on this soil. Welcome back to American History Express. I'm Asia Harriet Hales, and I will be your conductor today as we talk about Indigenous ingenuity. Yesterday, I asked y'all, what do all of these things have in common? And if you said they were all invented by Indigenous Americans, ding, 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 we have a winner. Not only were Indigenous people the first to cultivate avocado and pineapple, yeah, they were also the first group of people to come up with things like aspirin, baby bottles, and syringes. Now, I know what you're wondering. How do you make a syringe? They took bird bones, because bird bones are hollow, and sharpened them to a point and literally made syringes. That's wild to me. They also used something called stone fruit to brew a tea that was birth control. And they used sweetgrass as tampons. Here's a list of other inventions that Indigenous Americans came up with. And while I think it's important to give credit where it's due, there's an even better reason to study these things. Because the assumption is that the America colonizers set foot on was a pristine wilderness and not an environment that had been shaped by the people living there for 20,000 years. And so what we did was we came in and dipped in the Kool-Aid without knowing the flavor and instituted an entirely new system, which would not have been a problem if that system had not been inferior to the system that was already here. You see this? This would not be happening if we still stuck to indigenous ways of being and knowing. Indigenous Americans in the Pacific Northwest regularly practiced controlled burns, which prevented the huge amount of fire debt that we have now. And that fire debt is why California burns every year. You see this? It's a pile of buffalo skulls. Those are skulls of buffalo. This caused this. We didn't want indigenous people to be independent and have their own food source, so we were like, out with buffaloes, in with cows, because, milk supremacy. And when we did that, we sowed the seeds of our own destruction because we left rotting carcasses all over the plains that created all kinds of ecological problems. And we also got rid of the land grazers that were actually taking care of the land in that area. So what we ended up with was a big spot in the middle of the country where we used to grow all our food that around 1930 would not grow any food because we got rid of indigenous ways of being and knowing. Now, do you see this? This is called intercropping. The Indigenous Americans called this the Three Sisters, but it's basically just planting corn, beans, and squash together, because when you plant those three plants together, they support each other. They maintain the moisture balance in the soil. They give the soil back nutrients as they're growing. And also they taste good, right? Like it's a really healthy diet. The other thing about this type of intercropping is that it is very conservative in terms of how much space it uses. You can grow way more food per square inch intercropping versus single crop planting like colonizers did when they got here. Indigenous Americans even came up with baby food. They would mash up corn and other nutrients and put it in with breast milk in a clay bottle with a hole on the side to be able to give to babies so that mothers could have a break. Another thing is that if you were in a tribe, like everybody in the tribe who was nursing was going to nurse your baby. So babies had cross-cultural immunity because they had immunity not only from their own mother, but from other mothers within the tribe. This was a better system. This helped prevent the infant mortality rates that we have today. And then, of course, there are the things that we knew about, like canoes and snow goggles and moccasins. Yes, those are all wonderful as well. But what I really want us to understand is that we took superior technology and replaced it with inferior technology, and we're paying for it now. We can fix this. It is not too late to start turning back to indigenous ways of being and knowing and being in relationship with the land around us. And that doesn't mean go out and get you a bundle of sage, because that's not for you. What it means is to appreciate and partner with the earth and treat it like a limited resource instead of acting like we have 10 in our back pocket. Pesos. Billionaires. Who said that?